These cows and I have quite a few things in common. For one, we're both mammals. We're both endotherms. We regulate and maintain our own internal body temperature. And if you've ever seen me eat nachos, you'd think I have a multi-chambered stomach as well. But we have something far more unique in common. We both have tattoos. And while tattooing is a distinctly human invention, it's not really reserved for ourselves alone. Humans tattoo pets, livestock, and research animals as a way to categorize and identify certain individuals. And this comes in handy because unlike an ear tag or a collar, tattoos never come off. And that's exactly what we're going to explore today. What happens inside the body that makes tattoos permanent? Any guesses? Tattooing is as old as civilization itself. The earliest examples of it stretch back to tattooed human remains found in Peru that date back to 6000 BCE. The process is easy enough to understand. A needle, or in early man's case, a barb, a thorn, or carved instrument made from bone and eventually metal, would be dipped into a pigment. The pigments were made from crushed up flowers, fruits, and even the soot from an extinguished fire. The instruments might have looked something like this. The needles at the head would be dipped into the ink, placed on the skin in the desired location, and with a careful hand, tap the back of the head. The needles would pierce the epidermis, pushing the ink down into the dermis, where the ink would become trapped underneath. It's pretty neat stuff. After a few excruciating hours of this, you'd have a finished tattoo. Now, unless you have a really mellow cow, you're probably not going to get an animal to sit still long enough to tattoo him this way. So let's take a look at how we tattoo animals. Does it look cool? For tattooing livestock, you'd use something like this scary-looking torture device. It's a clamp. The clamp's made up of a bunch of needles in the shapes of various letters, numbers, and symbols. These symbols correlate with specific information like what kind of vaccine you gave the animal. To tattoo an animal, you would just use an everyday common household toothbrush and some animal tattoo ink paste, not to be confused with toothpaste. Squirt a little bit of this on the toothbrush, rub that onto the skin of the ear, grab your handy clamp, grab the animal's ear, place the ear between the clamps, press down, let the needles pierce the dermis, finish it up with one more layer of ink toothpaste, wait till the skin heals over, and there you have it, one tough-looking cow. Today we do things a bit differently when tattooing humans. Now, most of us have seen a tattoo gun before. It's an invention based off of Thomas Edison's design for an electronic engraving machine. Using a very fine needle, it pierces the skin at a rate of 50 to 3,000 times per minute. The needle pierces the outermost layer of epithelial tissue called the epidermis and pushes ink into the next layer, the dermis. The dermis is filled with connective tissues like collagen fibers, as well as nerves and blood vessels, which is why getting a tattoo is painful and can also make you bleed a bit. It's what happens in the dermis that makes tattooing possible. Now, if you think that getting a tattoo is sort of like getting stabbed by a million little knives, well, you'd technically be correct. And our bodies don't particularly like getting stabbed. So, as the tattoo gun pierces our skin over and over again, it starts to set off the body's natural warning alarm, the immune system. The inflammation occurs at the site of the tattoo, which causes an immune response, in this case, a cavalry of cells called macrophages. The macrophages are immune cells that are designed to clean up any foreign particles in the body. In this case, it would be the ink. The macrophages trap the ink inside of them, carry them to the nearest lymph node, where they are processed for excretion. Now, the trouble is that not all of the macrophages make it out alive, and many of them become trapped inside the dermis. Over time, your body sends in a type of dermis cell called a fibroblast, who also try to clean up the ink particles, and they themselves die a hero's death with a belly full of ink. And it is this exact process, all those cells left behind, trapped with ink inside of them, that make tattooing possible. Now, over time, the body repairs the damage done to the epidermis, and this peels away in an itchy process anyone with a tattoo can tell you about. What's left is a dermis grave with a bunch of little cells with ink inside of them, or as we like to call them, tattoos. But your body doesn't give up fighting. No, the body keeps sending in fibroblasts, who gobble up the old fibroblasts, thereby themselves becoming filled with ink. And it is this process, coupled with ultraviolet radiation from the sun, that causes tattoos to fade over time. And this is why I've always believed that tattoos aren't actually permanent. We just don't live long enough for our bodies to finish the job. Maybe a parrot or a tortoise. They do live a long time. You'd have to tattoo them when they're a baby, though.